Hello, my dear friends. I welcome you to my channel. Today's session is on fundamental rights. I hope you must have watched my previous videos. This is a third session on fundamental rights. The first video was an introduction to fundamental rights, and the second video that you must or you might have watched was on the features of fundamental rights. So let us recapitulate what we did, what we have discussed till now. So we have discussed the background, how this concept originated, and then we discussed the features. I have already discussed with you which are the fundamental rights granted to the citizens and non-citizens. So before we start the session, the discussion on right to equality, I would like to discuss with you uh, six fundamental rights which are enshrined in Part 3 of Indian Constitution, and the articles which are covering the fundamental rights, they start from 12 to 35. So let us make a list of the fundamental rights. The first fundamental right given to us is right to equality, Article 14 to 18. Second fundamental right is right to freedom, 19 to 22. Third fundamental right is right against exploitation, Article 23 and 24. Fourth fundamental right is right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. And the fifth fundamental right is uh, certain rights granted to the minorities for the establishment of educational centers and preserving the cultures, Article 29 and 30. So 31 I already discussed with you, that used to be a fundamental right till 1978. So by 44th Amendment Act, sixth fundamental right to property was uh, enshrined in Part 12 of the Constitution under Article 300A, which is now a legal right. So that means this is not a sixth fundamental right. No? So the sixth fundamental right would be Article 32 constitutional remedies. So now let us start the session. So we are going to discuss first fundamental right to equality. For many of individuals, a right to equality means just a single right. It's not like that. It is something different that the people might have perceived earlier. I request you to watch this video till end so that you understand what are the more fundamental rights, what are the other things that we are still not knowing. We assume that right to equality means just equal treatment in the society. There are many more things to learn here. Okay, so the topic that we are going to discuss here is right to equality. We will be starting from Article 14. So we are going to cover Article 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Correct? So all these articles from 14 to 18, they fall under the first fundamental right to equality. So the first fundamental right here is under Article 14. I mean to say right to equality. We have to discuss Article 14. Article 14 says that equality before law and equal protection of laws. Now we have to understand that this is actually saying two things: equality before law and equal protection of laws. When I talk about equality of law, it is one of the elements of rule of law which was propounded by A.V. Dicey. If I say equality before law, this is actually of British, I would say it is of British origin. Correct? It has been borrowed from somewhere British Constitution, I can say. Number one. Secondly, that I need to learn here is it is negative in the nature. Now, what does it mean by? Please understand that right to equality is having two elements. What I discussed with you is equality before law and equal protection of laws. As and when I talk about equality before law, it actually means that no one is above the law. No one is above the law. That means equal treatment will be given. It actually means that all individuals in the society are subjected to the, what I said, all individuals in the society are subjected to the ordinary laws administered by the ordinary law courts. So that means the equal treatment given by the courts in terms of imposing the punishments where when they are punishing the individuals, and all are subjected to the same provision. So there is no discrimination. Correct. So what I can say, no one is above the law. And when I talk about equal protection of laws, what does it mean by equal protection of laws? This is actually positive concept in the nature, and this was borrowed from the American Constitution. Equality before law and equal protection of law. So what I differentiated here is equality before law was borrowed from the Britishers, and when I say equal protection of laws, it was borrowed from the American Constitution. Now, equal protection of laws means to say the people in the similar situations are to be dealt in a similar manner. That means the same provisions will be applicable to the individuals, correct? And there cannot be any discrimination while deciding the punishments or the subjected to the crime committed by an individual, correct? So what I can suggest here is what I can describe here is in simple terms, equal protection of laws. That means all are subjected to the common laws. There is no nothing, there is no special treatment, special privileges to be given to anyone, no discrimination at all. So this is what is said by Article 14, correct? So what we can discuss here is that can there be some exceptions to the right to equality? Yeah, there are certain exceptions. If I read Article 361 of Indian Constitution, it states that there are some I would say a wide range of exceptions. What does it mean by some exceptions means? So it is not applicable every time. Correct. For example, no civil proceedings can be instituted. No civil proceedings can be instituted. No order of arrest or imprisonment can be issued by any court against the President of India or the governors of the state during their tenure. So that means there are the exceptions here. One. Second exception here is Supreme Court held that when Article 31C comes in, Supreme Court held that when Article 31C comes in, Article 14 goes out. Now, what does it mean by? It actually means that Article 31C. What does it mean by? We should understand the technical aspect of it. First of all, you must be knowing there are a number of chapters in the Constitution. Chapter 3 talks about discusses fundamental rights, and chapter 4 discusses it provides information about directive principles of the state policy. Correct. So 31C article gives authority to the state governments, state legislatures to enact the laws for the implementation of directive principles of the state policy. In case the laws enacted by the states, the respective state governments under Article 31C for the implementation of the directive principles of the state policy, such laws cannot be challenged in case they are found to be violative of Article 14. So that means in case the laws enacted by the state governments for the implementation of directive principles of the state policy, in case they violate Article 14 of the right to equality, still they cannot be challenged. So that means whenever Article 31C comes in, Article 14 goes out. One more important thing which I discussed just now, I discussed right to equality. I discussed two aspects there: equality before law and equal protection of laws. So, when I said here equality before law, I told you that it is one of the elements of rule of law. So, it is also held by Supreme Court that rule of law as embodied in Article 14 in the name of equality before law cannot be amended. So that means this is considered to be the basic structure of the constitution. So this is not a subject to be amended. So this can never be amended in any situation by the parliament. Correct. So this is what it has mentioned. There are certain judgments, certain statements made by the Supreme Courts. Whatever I have studied from the authentic sources, I'm sharing it with you. So anything which is considered to be the basic structure of the Constitution cannot be amended because it will come out with certain negative results at a later stage. So we'll continue with the discussion on the second right, Article 15. So this is going on under the right to equality. We discussed Article 14, equality before law and equal protection of laws. Now we are discussing Article 15. What does it mean to say? What does it say? Article 15 says that prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. So that means Whenever we talk about Article 15, that means no state governments, no one can discriminate on the basis of. Now, what does it mean by that? Means the people, irrespective of the place of birth, the people, irrespective of their gender, caste, color, and creed, they are subjected to the same provision. So that means they are to be given equal status, equal respect in the society. Correct? So the state governments cannot discriminate people on the grounds of caste, color, religion, place of birth, or gender. Clear? So that means no discrimination, equal treatment. So the next fundamental right that we have to learn here is equality of opportunities in matters of public employment. So as and when we apply for the government jobs, we always look for the equal treatment. Correct? So this is actually a fundamental right under Article 16. So that means individuals looking for the public employment, individuals who are willing to work with either the union government or the state government or maybe the third tier, the local governments. So in such situations, going for the public employment is also the fundamental right. But in what sense that we discuss here is what we means to say here is that the equal treatment. Correct? Equal treatments in what I said that equality. That means equal opportunities should be granted. So that means the procedure should be the same. Equal opportunities are to be granted to the citizens for the public employment. So that means it should be free from any discrimination. Correct? So what we discussed here till now, Article 14, Article 15, and Article 16. Now we are discussing Article 17. Article 17 talks about prohibition of untouchability. Please understand that Article 15 abolished, Article 18 abolished untouchability, and it also prohibits and it also forbids its practice in any form. Now, what does it mean by? If someone asks me what is the meaning of untouchability, I'm nobody to comment anything in this on this topic because it is nowhere mentioned. The word untouchability is nowhere defined in Indian Constitution, but to some extent we can link it some social disabilities which still existed in Indian society, especially when individuals were born to a particular caste. Some social disabilities. So here, what happened? There was a law. The title, the name of the law was Untouchability Offences Act 1955. Untouchability Offences Act 1955 was comprehensively amended. This was comprehensively amended and renamed in 1976. So the name of the act was Untouchability Offences Act 1955, which was comprehensively amended and renamed as. So it was renamed as what the rename, how it was renamed? It was renamed as Protection of Civil Rights. Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. So act remained, the year was the same, but the amendment when it was amended and it was renamed, this year was 1976. So that means Untouchability Offences Act 1955 was comprehensively amended and renamed in 1976, and it was renamed as Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. Correct? So it was amended because certain provisions were to be added to make the stringent norms so that the practice of untouchability should be prohibited. So it should be forbidden entirely in the society. So no one should be discriminated. There should not be a concept of untouchability. All are the citizens, the law in the eye of the law. Correct. So here that's what we discussed here, the untouchability factor, which is prohibited and its practice is prohibited under Article uh, 17. I'm sorry, this was 17 article. Correct. I hope it is clear. And Article 8 talks about the abolition of the titles except military and academic. You must have heard certain titles, the names of the individuals starting like Maharaja. So such words, such titles are prohibited under Article 18. Correct. So if I say certain when the people are given certain like prestigious awards like what we say Padam Bhushan, Padam Shri. So they're different from this. They're different from this. So the titles which are assumed by individuals like Maharaja and like other words, they are prohibited. Such practice cannot be continued in the society Why? Because it makes people to feel discriminated. Correct. That's why. So only two titles are allowed. What we mentioned here is I mentioned here is military and academic titles are allowed. A person serving defense forces is mentioning a title captain, lieutenant. These are allowed. Correct. Academic titles are also allowed. If you're a PhD holder, you're mentioning doctor, it's allowed, correct? But not other titles. You cannot use Raja, Maharaja, such words which are absolutely prohibited. They cannot be continued in the society. So let us recall what we discussed in this session. We discussed right to equality, which was a fundamental right, first fundamental right. So we have discussed Article 14. 14 was equality before law and equal protection of laws. Article 15 was prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, gender, or place of birth. Article 16 we discussed about the equal career opportunities in matters of public employment. Correct. 17 in Article 17 we discussed the abolition of untouchability and its practice which is to be prohibited, which is to be forbidden in the society. So that means there should not be a factor, there should not be a topic of untouchability, and its practice should also be forbidden. So it should not be continued in the society. Article 13, we discussed the titles which are to be abolished. So no person can use the titles like Maharaja and like that. Only two titles are allowed. What we discussed here was of military and academic. I hope you must have enjoyed this session. I try to discuss with you from the basic point of view so that if you do not know anything about the fundamental rights, you still are able to grasp maximally from this session. If you have any doubt, any query, you are free to approach me. You can submit your comment in the comment box. Feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you so much for watching this video. Have a great day.